Welcome to my boss-only tutorial for Huntdown for the Switch. I believe this game is also on PC. But yeah, since the stages in this game I found to be extremely easy, you can really just jump around and spam the dodge button, and just kind of dash through the air and just dodge everything, skip through everything. So I didn't find the regular gameplay on normal to be too challenging on the actual stages, so I decided it'd be better just to consolidate this tutorial and just, focus only on the bosses for the tutorial. Kind of cut through the bullshit. I did this with a few other tutorials. I have a Road Rash tutorial for the PlayStation version of Road Rash, where I kind of just went over the general strategies, of how to just beat the game, upgrading your bike and the fastest way to do everything. And with Val Ferris, I did a similar thing. Which is an awesome side-scrolling action game. And I, only focused on the bosses for that as well, because the game was about 2 hours long, and I didn't really want to record a 2-hour-long tutorial. Even though that game, it would have been a little bit better for that game, because that game actually had challenging stages, unlike this game. This game really doesn't. If you play aggressively with skipping shit, you can really... Once you have a general strategy for skipping everything, you can kind of just, with a little bit of practice, find the path and just skip through all the enemies. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be watching this video as it plays out, and it's going to kind of refresh my memory because I played this game over the course of some months. So, all the boss fights aren't fresh in my mind, but it'll come back to me, as I watch the videos. So yeah, for this first boss, I don't remember him being too challenging. From what I'm seeing here, it doesn't look too challenging. I think I just kept my distance and took shots at him. And, when he would come up on the floor that I was on, I would usually go back, down to the bottom floor. If he was on the bottom, I'd go back up to the top after taking some shots. And just kind of keep your distance. And most of the bosses have minions you can take out to get more health, so that's always going to be useful. So here you start off with a few health items already on the field, which is good. So save those for when you need them. But this second boss is also kind of similar from what I remember. It's mainly just keeping your distance, taking shots. And, grab the weapons when you can and use them for some extra damage. The machine gun does some nice damage. I don't find the melee weapons in this game to be too useful, such as, the guitar, the sword, weapons like that where you go up and smack the enemy. They don't really do a shit ton of damage, and, you're usually going to get hit when you get up close unless you really know the patterns well. I'd recommend just keeping your distance. I also like using this character that you see me using. This particular male character has a pretty powerful single shot from his gun. It's a default shot is pretty powerful. I believe I'm using that character from the start. I could be wrong, but the character that I end up using the most in this game was the male character, because on default he has a pretty powerful Magnum type of shot. So I recommend using him. I think at this point in the game, I may have actually been using the rapid fire character, the black female character. Possibly. But I think they may all wear masks, so it may not show who I'm actually using. Because I see she has a rapid fire default. I think that's the female character. But either way, it doesn't make a huge difference what character you choose, but they do have a different sub-weapon that comes equipped to them. So depending on which one you like and, which regular default shot you like. Because remember, you're not always going to have weapon pickups. So you want to find a default shot that you like better. And I like the more powerful Magnum shot that one of the male characters had. So yeah, for this fight, it was, again, just switching sides and taking shots pretty much. There wasn't much to it. Remember that you're invincible during your dashes. So whether you do a dash on the ground or you dash down from the air, you have invincibility frames through that dash. So if you're about to get hit, you can dash through enemies. You can dash through hits that are about to contact you. So, use those invincibility frames and just dodge, switch sides. His patterns are pretty damn basic, so it's really not too hard. You can see this fight's not too refined because I beat this fight pretty damn quickly. So I didn't really have much time to practice it. So it probably won't take you too long to beat this guy. Now, some of the later fights do get hard. Some bosses probably took me over an hour. There are a few tough bosses. That's the main challenge of this game on normal is the boss fights. There's definitely some challenging ones. This is the first boss that presents any kind of real, challenge. I don't believe it's too difficult, but it's one of the first bosses you'll come across that at least provides a little bit of a challenge. But this boss has very easy patterns to recognize. It's mostly just going to walk towards you with the flamethrower and then drop down and do the same. So, what you see me doing here, it's a very simple pattern to recognize. Just, take some shots and jump over him when he gets close. You don't want to be right in front of him, but that's about it. I think it gets a little bit faster. Kill some minions, you can sometimes get some health, I believe, but for the most part, you can stay down here and do most of your fighting down here. Wait for the boss to come down to these bottom areas. It's an easy way to deal with the boss. Use your dash to go through the boss and get distance, so you can keep your distance from the boss. You can just dash right through the boss with those invincibility frames. And just pick up the weapons. I don't really recommend the crowbar. I find these melee weapons to be pretty shitty. So now, when this boss catches on fire after he's damaged a certain amount of damage, he's going to run around on fire. It's very easy, though. You can see he's running in a very, very simple pattern. He just runs towards you, you shoot at him, and then just drop down and repeat. You can see exactly how he's running. He just goes in a zigzag pattern, He'll run to the right, drop down, then run to the left, then drop down, run to the right, drop down, run to the left, etc. And he'll just keep doing that until he dies. So, very easy. There may be some falling debris to dash through and watch out for. And that's about it. Very simple boss. But it's, I would say it's probably the hardest of the bosses that we've fought so far. Which isn't saying too much, but it definitely gets harder. So now this is the first kind of big main area boss. These bosses are a little bit more detailed, usually sometimes have multiple health bars, multiple forms. But I believe this one is pretty simple, from what I remember. Just keep your distance, shoot at the shield initially. You want to take that out. And now this little guy comes out. So take your shots at him while you can. That's going to be what does the main damage once the shield is down. So now he somehow pulls another shield out of his ass, and you're just going to repeat the same thing. Kind of like a fucking clown pulling shit out of his cape, you know what I mean? So he's got another fucking shield, but very simple patterns. You just keep your distance. It's very easy to dodge the attacks. You can really see where they're coming. It's nothing too complicated. So not too much to explain with that. You'll see where the missiles are going to hit by the squares that are on the ground. So just avoid those squares. They highlight where the missile's going to drop. And then you're just going to take your shots at the little man. And I believe, again, he will pull another shield out of his ass. So you just rinse and repeat. Now you got a few enemies that show up, but the enemies are actually more helpful than harmful because they give you items and shit, especially the healing items. So save those for when you need them. If you already have full health, obviously don't grab them. The good thing about items in this game and weapons is that they stay on the ground permanently until you leave the area. So, fully leave the area. So you can kind of just let shit accumulate. You could have a bunch of healing items on the field and not use them if you're good at not taking damage. So this boss was kind of tough. I remember this being the toughest one up to this point in the game. For sure. I would say start off by aggressively grenading his little hiding area over there, and take shots when you can at his little encampment that he has. But the first part really isn't too difficult. Take your shots. Move out of the way. I was getting a little greedy there, but throw your special weapon out as well, as it does nice damage and it charges up. So you can charge up whenever your special weapon is charged up. Always try to use it and get that extra damage. It's a nice amount of damage for a free weapon. So yeah, eventually he's going to come down. This is where the fight gets challenging, because now he's throwing dynamite everywhere and he's moving around a lot. The main strategy that I use is I always try to avoid the side that he's on. I try to be on the opposite side and take my shots from the opposite side. Now, of course, while you're doing that, just be wary of all the attacks that he's throwing out. The dynamite is going to explode shortly after it lands, so just try to keep away from all that shit. Be willing to switch platforms often. You don't want to be too stubborn and stay in one area for too long. And, grab the machine guns and various weapons on the field and just take your shots, take your time. It's really not too hard to dodge once you, kind of get in a rhythm with it. Just got to be patient and stay on the other side of them and just take your shots when you can. I was able to get some health there, luckily, because I was finally starting to get the pattern down, so I wasn't really taking damage at this point. See, now that can be a little tricky when he throws out all that dynamite. So just find a gap and stand in the gap. Just have to move fast when he does that. That's probably his hardest move that he does, his hardest single move to deal with. But it's easy if you're paying attention to the gap. The boomerang, of course, doesn't have a lot of range, so when I throw it out, it's a good chance that it's not going to hit him because I'm keeping my distance. I'm trying to stay as far away from him as possible, pretty much all the way on the other end. I found that worked well for this boss. It may take a little while. Of course, you could try to play it more aggressively, take him out faster if you want. But then you probably wouldn't be watching a tutorial to see how to beat these guys. Of course, this tutorial is really unrefined. It's just me beating the bosses for the first time and the only time. So whatever happened is what happened. So yeah, I didn't put the extra refinement like I did with, certain tutorials. I put a lot of extra work into, like sometimes an additional 6 to 8 hours, depending on the game. But if you look at my tutorial for, say, Ninja Gaiden 3 for the NES, that took me around 16 and a half hours to beat, legitimately. And then after that, I put in, probably several more hours just to refine all the footage and get a no damage run of the game for the tutorial, where I did each section with no damage. Of course, I didn't do it all in one run. I did it section by section, but it did take a few extra hours to do that. So, depending on the game, if I really like a game now, I have been doing some more refined tutorials, like Double Dragon Advance, the expert mode. I did a really refined tutorial of that took probably an extra 6 hours to do. So yeah, for this boss, this is kind of similar to some of the early bosses we fought. It's a pretty damn easy fight. This is just about, switching planes when he gets close to you, dashing through him. Now, you can see the hockey stick is not great. I was fucking around. But it's almost not even worth getting, because usually you end up getting hit when you try to smack the bosses around. It works decent on regular enemies, possibly, because they die faster. But, for a boss, you smack them and it doesn't really disrupt the boss too much, and they'll just hit you. So this is the part of the fight that gets trickier, because you got to watch out for these lasers. But I mean, it's the same thing pretty much. Dash through the lasers, take your shots when you can. This fight is a little bit tricky. I mean, it's not super easy because the lasers get kind of irritating. The boss is pretty aggressive, but if you dash at the right time, you can just kind of just dash through the attacks and continue firing on the boss using your grenades when you have them. Don't really recommend picking up the hockey stick and trying to smack the boss too much. But the machine guns and shotguns are always useful. You can see there's a pretty simple pattern here, though. I mean, sometimes it moves fast, so you can fuck it up, but the movements are pretty simple. The boss basically only does hit-and-run type of strategies. Sometimes it's sneaky, though, because the boss will switch platforms really quickly when you don't expect it. So you got to be ready to dash. But it's not too difficult. This is a mid-boss. And this wasn't too challenging. Basically just want to take your shots and, switch platforms as needed. There's a big fucking health pack, I believe, at the bottom right there that I just got. So that's a full health refill. So if you want to be really stingy, you can wait till you almost have no life left, collect it, and refill your entire health so you can really last out the fight. And of course you can use this crate as cover here and take a few shots, get some extra damage in that way. And there's not much else to it. Just take your time and take your shots when you can. Use the cover. It's a pretty easy fight. I figured I would include it in the boss tutorial because it is, I would say it's a boss. It's more of a mini boss, but it's one of the higher health enemies that you have to kill to proceed. There are other enemies that have a lot of health, but a lot of times you can just dash through them and skip them, which I skipped so many fucking enemies in this game pretty much for the regular areas. I would get to the stage bosses pretty damn quick most of the time. There's a few checkpoints that were a little challenging, but not really enough for me to make a tutorial on the full game, because it would be pretty redundant. I would basically just be telling you to skip everything by dashing through all the enemies. And, there's not really much to say about that. This was a great fucking game, though. I highly recommend it. If this is your first time seeing footage of it, you can rest assured that the game is really good, really enjoyable game. I may do a review for this as well. This is another boss, like a lot of the bosses that run side to side. And, you just take your shots from a distance, grab what you can. There's a few different little nuances between these these type of bosses, but, I mean, it's pretty minor. As long as you keep your distance, take your shots, kill the minions to try to get healing when possible. Throw out your grenades for some extra damage. And, it's not too hard. The boss is pretty aggressive with the firing, but it's really not too difficult if you keep your distance, just grab shit and run around. I try to be on the opposite side of most of these bosses. This boss is a little tricky. First you have to deal with some gun turrets before the boss comes out. So you want to try to take out these turrets as quickly as possible. If you're unable to take them out right away, then just, be wary that they fire out a pointer laser before they actually shoot. So that lets you know, the order that the guns are going to fire in. So you can plan ahead very easily with that. So just make sure you're not in the area that one of the guns is about to fire on. And try to take, the guns out as quickly as you can. The shotgun works well for taking out those turrets. It's pretty quick. It's one shot. So yeah, after that, the boss will come out. I think you have to fight some minions. They can be a little irritating, but at least they drop some health. This guy can be a little difficult because he'll, switch platforms pretty aggressively and fire on you. But the main thing is going to be the turrets that appear. You're going to want to take them out as quickly as possible so that they don't get in the way of you fighting the boss, because they're very much in the way of you fighting this guy. So I would say focus more on the turrets and try to take your shots on the boss when you can. Now this is the main boss of this stage, or world. This guy's really not too bad once you get his patterns down. You just have to be able to read when he's going to do his various attacks and know how to dodge each one. And, it's pretty easy to learn. When he rears back like that, he's going to do his charge across the arena. So be ready to jump over it or dash through it. And whenever he changes positions, he's going to fire his Gatling gun. So get a few shots in and then switch platforms. Now, eventually his minions will come out when you damage him a certain amount. So just kill the minions. and just repeat the patterns again. He's going to do the same patterns again. So just counter all of his attacks as normal. Just want to be switching platforms when he gets in that Gatling position. You say he only has like 2 attacks that he does, so it's very easy to judge. So yeah, at this point I have a bunch of healing items just laying on the field unused because it's been pretty predictable. If he catches you off guard, he can get across the arena really quickly, so you got to be ready. But he always, you can always see when he's going to do it. But it's kind of a quick attack, so if you're not paying attention, you can miss it. So now he has a final form. And now he throws out his axe, and he'll run towards it. So be ready to dodge both of those attacks. You can jump both of them, or use your dash will work as well. He gets stuck in the wall briefly, so you can get some hits in when he does that. But it's still pretty simple. He repeats these simple patterns again and again. So there really isn't much of a challenge to this fight. It just goes on for a little while, but it's actually very simple. But you can fuck up if you are not really paying attention. But that's it. He just repeats the same patterns and, till he dies. So this is another mini boss, I believe. Or maybe, no, this may actually be a main boss for the stage. I don't think this is too difficult. It's mainly about firing on this guy and then, dodging the vehicle when he tries to run you over. Dodge the boulders. So not too much to say about this fight. Most of these bosses are like single form type of bosses. They're not multi-form, aside from like the main stage bosses. So I believe this is the only life bar that this boss has. It's a little bit of a slow fight since he's a little bit hard to hit, but it's real easy if you're patient. I think some of the platforms break off, so that makes things a little bit more challenging. But it's the same basic idea. If you get knocked in the hole, of course, that's an instant death, but it's easy enough. I believe this boss is a little bit tricky, this sniper. But there are some pretty simple patterns. You, of course, want to take your shots when you have, a brief opening to take a shot. It's better if, the sniper comes up into your bullet fire as the sniper is moving up, and then you just get out of there. So you can get some free hits in. Or while the sniper's descending, either way. You just don't want to stay in your area for too long, because after that red line of sight, the bullet's going to come out. So But the boss doesn't really do much aside from, moving around in a circle, stopping and firing. So it's very predictable. It's probably the most predictable boss. It's a very easy pattern. But it can still be a little bit tricky with the minions and, other bullshit going on. It's also pretty slow to get damage in. There is a full healing item up at the top, though, so there's a decent amount of room for error. More of a tedious fight now that I see it again. Not really too difficult, I guess, but definitely tedious. I remember it being a slow fight. I believe I'm using a character with the Magnum type pistol now as his default weapon, which I like better than the rapid fire gun. I was able to get the sniper in a loop here by jumping up and then back down again. I don't know if I could have been doing that the whole time. It is possible. Unless she just started tracking my movement near the end of the fight, that's also possible. That might be kind of what the sniper ends up doing, to escalate the difficulty when you're just about to beat her or him or whatever it is. But I did start to get the sniper in a little loop near the end. This boss is pretty tough. This is a pretty challenging fight. This fight is really about setting traps and using your detonator bombs to kind of set traps for once you get used to the path that the vehicles are going to travel, makes it a lot easier. You have to detonate the bombs at the right time when the car's driving over. It's the best way to fight anyway. Because the boss moves fast most of the time, so it's better to use bombs, I think. You can also detonate the barrels. But you see they do nice damage when they land. You're trying to hit the vehicle that has the guy sitting in it. That's the only one that can take damage. I mean, you can destroy the smaller vehicles, but I don't think there's much point. Better just to focus on the main. The rocket launcher is pretty decent too, since it does nice one-shot damage. Because you don't have a lot of time to fire on the boss with a machine gun or anything like that. So you really just want to use bombs, missiles. After a while, you'll get a feel for the path that the vehicles drive in. So you just want to have the bombs ready ahead of time. And then after enough explosives, this boss will be dead. It may take a few tries to get the driving patterns down, so you have an idea of where the boss is going to show up. I don't remember if this boss is the end of this world boss, but I know it's a multi-form boss. I remember that much. So it may be. Kind of a cool fight. Reminds me of something from Terminator 2. They ripped that shit off, but it's kind of cool. The first part is very easy. Just dodge the flames and shoot at it as it swings from left to right. Now he'll come down, but he's pretty easy to deal with. Fire at him, and when he gets close, use your dash invincibility frames to just dash through his body. And then, take some more shots at him. Just rinse and repeat until this form is done. Again, I really don't recommend picking up the wrench or using any close range melee items. Now, you may like them if you want to experiment with those, but whenever I tried fucking around with them, I always end up taking extra damage, and it really wasn't worth the damage I did to the boss. So now you have the last form of this boss. And this is more challenging, obviously, because he'll really rush you and try to slam you, but your strategy is going to be pretty similar to dashing through his body and switching sides. It's just going to be, a different rhythm and different ranges that you have to deal with, but it's a similar type of avoidance, pattern, but it's a little bit changed up. But it's pretty simple. Just be careful not to fall into the lava, because that's an instant death. That'll probably be the biggest danger, is kind of fucking up and slipping into the lava. It's really not too difficult. There is one very difficult boss in the game. Really just one that I thought was quite difficult. Probably took me over an hour to beat. But, even the final boss really wasn't that difficult. So this was a cool fight. I like this fighting on this train type of boss. Very cool. Not too difficult, though. So yeah, you get some powerful weapons, so use those launchers and shit and take your shots. Go back and get some other shit and bring it back and start fucking shit up. Very telegraphed shot. I mean, when you see that laser, it's giving you a lot of time to get out of that position. So, not hard to dodge at all. There was some shit that dropped from the ceiling as well, or the sky, which was also very easy to dodge. So, same shit. Just dodge the motor when it blows out of the vehicle, and keep shooting at the cab of the truck. Pick up more weapons as needed. You don't really have that much shit that you have to dodge. It's more of a fun boss fight than anything. So now I think it gets a little bit more challenging fighting this chainsaw guy. But you have a lot of room to move in this arena, so just watch out for the debris and try to take your shots when you can. Don't get too close to the boss. You got a lot of weapons that you can pick up and take shots at the boss. So it shouldn't take too long to take this guy down. The main challenge is maybe, the motor that pops out. Try not to get hit by that. The tire won't hurt you. There's a bouncing tire that always comes out. That doesn't hurt you, but the motor will. And that's it. It's a pretty simple boss. It's multi-form. It may be, I believe it's the area boss of that whole area, but it's actually easy. Just multi-form, but very easy. So now, actually, this was one of the harder bosses. Not the hardest boss that I was talking about, which is a snake boss, but this is definitely one of the harder boss fights. So you just want to try to shoot one of these samurais whenever you get a chance. And of course, dash through them and avoid them. I like staying on the bottom for most of the fight. But eventually you do have to move out of this area. You'll see now spikes start coming out, so be ready to dodge those. You have a moment to dodge them. You'll see them peek through the wall that they're going to fire from. So now new things are getting added. Now you have the spikes and you have these rotating things on the field. So be ready to dash through the boss or dodge the boss and take your shots. You can see I was getting close to death here. You can also destroy those spinning things, which makes things easier to manage. But it is a lot of shit to avoid between the spikes and the rollers and the samurai. There's a lot of shit going on, so just be ready to dodge, be aware. Once you learn the patterns, you'll get better at dodging everything because you'll see everything coming. It will start to click after a while, but it's a challenging fight. It definitely took me, a lot of attempts to get from what I remember. You do get some health pickups from the rollers sometimes when you destroy them, so keep in mind that destroying those rollers is actually a really good way to stay alive. You can get, you clear the field, and you also can pick up some healing items from those. So it's worth doing. So with this next boss, this is the first time that the cover is introduced in the form of these flaps that come up. And I believe you use that for part of this fight. But for this first part, this is going to be like a lot of the regular bosses where you just like switch planes, fire, switch planes, and just keep doing that. You can dash through that hail of gunfire if you time it right, or position yourself right. I don't recommend using the sword. So you can just dash through that hail of gunfire. Not like that, obviously, though. So now he's going to get in the helicopter. And just move out of the way when he starts firing the Gatling. Dodge the crates. It's actually pretty easy to dodge. There's really not that much that you have to avoid. Much easier than the previous fight that we just completed with the samurais. It's a pretty easy fight. Just be ready to dodge that shower of grenades. Just get in the gaps. Stay away from the mines that land on the ground. So now watching this, I think you don't use these little flaps on the ground as cover, so that might be a little bit later. I know you do later on. But yeah, just keep killing the minions, keep firing on the helicopter and dodging everything. It's really not too difficult. This guy is really fucking easy to exploit, from what I remember. So I think this one will be super easy. If I remember right, I was able to get on the other side of the screen and just pull complete bullshit with this boss. I may have had to fight him up close later on, but you'll see at some point I get to the other side of the screen and just shoot him from all the way on the other edge of the screen. See here, I'm all the way on the other side of the screen, and he's not even within range of doing any damage. As long as you stay far away and from you can fire your shots from far away. I think at some point I end up going like the full length of the screen and just fire. See, if you get really far, I think this is when I figured out that I could just go really fucking far away and hang out on the other edge of the screen. I don't think I didn't realize that right away, but once I realized all of his attacks were short-range attacks, I figured it out. The dragons, though, can still get in the way, so you got to be careful with that. But yeah, really easy boss. I mean, most of the time you can just stay away from him and shoot him from a distance. You can see I only died 8 times for that stage, so it really wasn't too challenging. So this is the hardest boss in the game for me. There's 3 forms to this fight. First form isn't too hard, but it's a little tedious because, it does go on for a little while. You do have to take a lot of little pot shots and keep switching platforms. there are no checkpoints on the various forms of the boss, so you do have to beat all 3 forms in one segment. So after you damage her enough, the enemies do come out, and you can grab some stuff, healing items, shit like that. But with the actual boss, the main strategy is to take your shots and then switch platforms, and you'll get used to her patterns. You'll know when she pulls out her pistol, you can get maybe one shot in, but then drop down to the next platform. And she turns into a snake. She has these various rushes and things she does, which you'll learn by just playing it. You'll see how to dodge it. Now this part is tricky initially because the snake doesn't always go where you want it to go, but this is again pattern recognition, which is getting used to how the snake moves. And once you understand where the snake is coming from, you can dash right in the gap where the snake is originally coming out. You can kind of stay in there and take shots. See, I get in here. I didn't do it fast enough that time, but there's definite patterns to it. So if you get in there fast enough, you can get underneath it kind of and get in that little gap from where it's coming out. I messed up a lot on this second form, though, but I was able to do well enough on the final form. So for this final form, the laser works really good. So charge it up and take your shots. And you want to move, the way you see me moving when this thing showers out its shots, there's gaps if you notice. So I recommend watching the way I move there and following that movement on those to dodge those various projectiles. It's not the easiest thing to explain, but you can see it in the way I move. So this part is very easy. Just use this fireplace. Hold up near this fireplace to take cover inside the fireplace, which is kind of a strange place to take cover, but just do that and pop out when you have a chance and take some shots at the samurai. And you also want to pop out and shoot that moving orb the moment you can, because it can destroy you even when you're in cover. It can do massive damage. So when you see that orb floating out, come out for a moment, pop off a shot, and take it out. But that's about it. And do the same thing on the samurais. I get a little sloppy here, but you really don't need to play it perfectly. But yeah, very easy little boss fight. But yeah, soon after this will be the final boss, which is pretty challenging, but it's not nearly as hard as that previous boss that I showed. So this is the final boss, and it has 2 forms. And this boss is all recognizable patterns that you can learn. I mean, it's all very learnable. So once the boss telegraphs its various attack patterns, you can dodge them all once you know how to dodge each pattern. So it's not too much to it. It does take a little while to get comfortable with the patterns, but most of them are pretty easy once you realize what's going on. So kill the minions whenever they come out. You want to be ready to kill them each time, and try not to take any bullets from them. Use those little back panels as cover from the actual boss, because the boss fires at you too, and the only way to get complete cover is by being behind one of them. So take your shots at the boss during this buzzsaw phase, and just stay in one place mainly and kind of just jump them. You'll get the pattern down after some practice. It's very similar each time. They do move faster as the fight progresses, but you'll learn the pattern. And then after that, take your shots at the boss from a distance. When you see him kind of cock his arm back, he's going to do his swing. So, if you're close to him, just jump straight up, and you'll dodge his swing if you time it right. See that swing he does? It has a huge range, but it's very easy to dodge. Even if you're close to him, you can easily just jump in place. So now take your shots at the boss again, and when these buzzsaws come out, just be ready to jump, duck, dash, do all that shit as needed. But once you get used to it, you won't even need to use the dash. You can just kind of just jump and duck. Depending on the height of the saw, you can either duck it or jump it. But yeah, same shit here. Just take your shots. When he cocks his arm back, just dodge. He does 3 in a row at that point. So be ready to dodge that blade swing 3 times. You can pick up some health by killing these minions. And after a while, you'll know which minions are going to come out and how to kill them quickly so you can get everything. You don't really want to knock them off the ledge because then you won't get the healing items. You may need them. But after a while, if you get used to the patterns, you're probably not going to get hit too much by this point. The buzzsaws are the hardest thing that he does, but you can get in a rhythm with them. You can see here I was able to dodge them without taking any damage. And I believe that was the fastest pattern of the buzzsaws, but it's pretty much the same shit, just sped up. So again, he's going to do a few swings, so just be ready to deal with these 3 swings. Take your shots. And of course, you want to take cover and take out the minions whenever they appear. I believe all the minion appearances in this game are triggered by the boss being knocked down to a certain health level. I believe that's how all the bosses work. So yeah, now he's going to do these buzzsaws for one last time. So just take him out. And that's it. It's pretty simple. I mean, it does take a little while to get used to all the patterns. It might take you some time, but once you get used to it, it's a pretty easy fight. And it doesn't take too long to learn. It's pretty simple patterns. There's only about 3 or 4 attacks, I think. Not too many. So now you have the final boss, and this is actually a checkpoint. Unlike the snake fight, this one is pretty balanced. It gives you a checkpoint here. So this is a very easy fight. It's more like a finishing fight for fun. It's not really challenging. But it's cool. So I recommend getting the various sniper weapons. There's 2 different ones. The laser type weapon is not really a sniper weapon, I guess, but it's similar to it's a charged shot that does a lot of damage, a single shot that does a lot of damage. So use the sniper and the charged laser to take this guy out. And the main thing you have to watch out for is the falling debris. That's the main challenging thing. I mean, the boss is not too hard to dodge. He may get you occasionally, but you just want to mainly just go on the opposite platforms and try not to get hit too much by his dash. But you do have some healing items you can pick up, so it's really not that difficult, even if you get hit like I did. You see, I didn't have this practiced, too well. But, I mean, it was easy enough. It didn't take me too many tries to beat this guy. Like I said, the previous form is a little challenging, but this is pretty easy. It's not too different than what you've already dealt with. Just try to take your shots and go to the other platforms, dash through them. But with the healing item they give you, you can probably take about 10 hits. So, yeah, it's not too dangerous. And you can keep starting on this part again and again. Yeah, and that's it. So, if you completed all this, then you've completed the game. And there is a badass difficulty setting, which I think maybe reduces your health to 3 pieces of health instead of 5, which is not much of a difference. And then after that, I'm not sure how you unlock it, but I think there is a difficulty mode that if you get hit once, you die. I think that's the hardest mode. And I don't believe I unlocked that mode. But yeah, that would definitely require more of a tutorial. That you would have to have the patterns down a lot better for that. But I really didn't like, I didn't like this game to the point that I wanted to master it to that level. But if you have any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching.